Hello, welcome friends. This is Dr. Sangram Patil, and this is part 3 of the chapter Our Environment in your Year 10 CBSE syllabus book. If you haven't watched part 1 and part 2, they are available on the channel, so you can go through them. In this section, we are going to look at how the human activities affect environment and what should we do about that. So there are quite a few activities the book wants you to go through and make visits and do the activities at home and in your school. So listen carefully. These are practically very important activities and it's a nice information to have. So this section looks at two main issues that are important in current day-to-day life. The one is ozone layer and the second is waste disposal. Okay, so both are important, and through these two issues, it tries to emphasize the fact that human society is in constant interaction with the environment, and when human being tries to grow in economic field, the activities that are needed for economic growth and development, such as industry, businesses, travel, infrastructure, and other activities, they all impact on our environment locally as well as globally. So let's go through these one by one. So first is ozone layer and how ozone layer is at risk. So first of all, let's see what is ozone. Okay, so ozone is made up of three oxygen atoms. It's O3. Okay, so remember, it's a simple thing to remember. Ozone is O3. Oxygen is O2 molecule and O is oxygen atom. So two atoms will generate oxygen molecule. Three atoms will generate ozone molecule. So ozone, while oxygen normally is required for all the aerobic processes and the life of most of the organisms on the earth, ozone is a poison. It's a deadly poison. But ozone that is present at the higher level in the atmosphere, it performs an essential function. It shields the surface of the earth from the ultraviolet radiation that come to us from sun. Okay, so ozone shields. So there is an ozone layer that's about 20 to 30 kilometers from earth's surface. Okay, that shields the ultraviolet lights that come from sun to earth, and that has got very important significance. This radiation is highly damaging to the organisms. It causes skin cancers and other side effects. So ozone at a higher level from earth's surface is the product of ultraviolet radiation that act on oxygen. So sun's ultraviolet radiation act on oxygen molecule. They split oxygen molecule into two oxygen atoms, and another oxygen molecule that combines with oxygen atom gives rise to O3, that is ozone. So O plus O2 is equal to O3. That's how ozone is generated from free oxygen atom and oxygen combining at the higher level of the atmosphere. Okay, so that's how ozone is generated. It's a simple for chemical formula, so nobody should forget that. The amount of ozone in the atmosphere is important so that the ultraviolet lights can be filtered. Okay, but this ozone layer, the amount of ozone in this layer dropped in 1980s. Okay, and this decrease was linked to the synthesis of chemicals like chlorofluorocarbon CFCs. Okay, these are used in refrigerants and in extinguishers. So two industries, refrigerator and extinguisher, the fire extinguishers. Okay, so they are used in extinguishers and refrigerators, two industries. So in 1987, okay, United Nations Environmental Program, that is United Nations Environmental Program, UNEP, that succeeded in making an agreement to stop the production of chlorofluorocarbon in to the 1986 level. So in 1987, this agreement, United Nations Environmental Program, was made between various nations in the world, and they agreed to bring down the chlorofluorocarbon production to 1986 level, so to a lower level. So there is an activity that is given in your book, but let's go through this diagram quickly. So sunlight, I'll explain you this diagram. The sunlight consists mainly of short wavelength radiation, that is ultraviolet, visible light, and infrared radiation, UV, IR, and visible light. So UV is filtered here. So UV is restricted at the ozone layer. So remember, these are the atmospheric layers, okay, different atmospheric layers, and much of the harmful ultraviolet radiation is absorbed by ozone layer before the sunlight can reach the surface of the earth. Okay, so that's ozone layer lies within stratosphere layer. So stratosphere extends from 12 kilometers to 50 kilometers from the surface of the earth. The troposphere of the atmosphere extends from the earth's surface to the 12 kilometers. So 0 to 12 troposphere, 12 to 50 is stratosphere, and ozone lies within the stratosphere layer. Okay, so your book wants you to do an activity, okay, and that activity is to find out the ozone from internet and newspaper, which chemicals are responsible for depletion of the ozone layer in the atmosphere. So I've taken this list from the authentic sources on the internet. Ozone depleting substances, that is ODS. There are about 100 man-made substances that reduce the ozone layer in the atmosphere. So ODS, ozone depleting substances, include CFCs, chlorofluorocarbons, HCFCs, hydrochlorofluorocarbons, halogens, methyl bromide, carbon tetrachloride, and there are few more. You don't need to remember the whole list, but just for the completion of the list, this is hydrobromofluorocarbons, chlorobromomethane, and methyl chloroform. So this is about ozone depleting substances. Now second part of your activity is find out if the regulations put in place to control the emission of these chemicals have succeeded in reducing the damage to the ozone layer. Has the size of the hole in ozone layer changed in recent years? Okay, so that's a very current knowledge question in science. So let's go through that. The short answer for that is the Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete the ozone layer is the landmark multilateral governmental environmental agreement that regulates the production and consumption of nearly 100 man-made chemicals called as ozone depleting substances. So, Montreal Protocol of United Nations regarding depletion of ozone layer. Okay, remember this. Now, these chemicals, the ozone depleting substances, they release chlorine into the atmosphere. In the stratosphere, the chlorine atom combines with ozone and they form chlorine monoxide. Okay, and chlorine monoxide breaks down ozone before releasing another chloride atom once again. So chlorine monoxide, it destroys ozone, it breaks down ozone layer, and it releases chlorine again. So that again combines with another oxygen atom, and that keeps breaking the ozone layer. It's a continuous cycle. So one atom of chlorine can destroy up to 100,000 molecules of ozone before setting to Earth's surface as a chloride years later. Okay, so one chlorine atom can destroy up to 100,000 molecules of ozone. So it is very, very harmful, and that chlorine comes from the ozone depleting substances. The list of this I have given here. So you can actually make a screenshot of this list if you want to remember them, read them, revise them again, but it will be here on the video anyway. Now, what I'm trying to do now next is to go through Montreal Protocol a little bit more. I've taken this from the latest updates on United Nations website. Montreal Protocol on Substances that Deplete the Ozone Layer is the landmark multilateral environmental agreement that regulates the production and consumption of nearly 100 man-made chemicals referred to as ODS, ozone depleting substances. When released to the atmosphere, those chemicals damage the stratospheric ozone layer, Earth's protective shield that protects humans and environment from harmful levels of ultraviolet radiation from the sun. And this Montreal Protocol was adopted on 16 September 1987. The protocol is to date one of the rare treaties to achieve universal ratification. So it's been accepted universally. Okay, very important protocol. Now, little bit more about this protocol, and then I'll take you through what is the effect result of this protocol. What does Montreal Protocol do? It phases down the consumption and production of different ozone depleting substances in a stepwise manner with different timetables for developed and developing countries. Okay, so it phases down the consumption and production of ODS in stepwise manner. Okay, under this treaty, all parties, that means all the countries, have specific responsibilities related to the phase out of different groups of ozone depleting substances, control of ODS trade, annual reporting of data, and national licensing systems to control ODS imports and exports and other issues. Okay, so it puts restriction on production of ODS, trade of ODS, annual reporting of the data, licensing system to control import and export of ODS and other issues. So it puts restrictions on ODS free use. Now the treaty evolves over the time in light of new scientific, technical and economic developments. Okay, and it has got the Ozone Secretariat, which is an office. It is based at United Nations Environment Program headquarters in Nairobi in Kenya. So Ozone Secretariat, United Nations Environmental Program headquarters in Nairobi in Kenya. Now, what has happened because of this Montreal Treaty, Montreal Protocol? So with the full and sustained implementation of Montreal Protocol, the ozone layer is projected to recover by middle of this century. So by 2050, the ozone layer will recover. Without this treaty, ozone depletion would have increased tenfold by the mid of this century, that is 2050. Okay, so if this protocol was not in place, the ozone layer would have depleted 10 times by 2050. But now, because of this protocol, it is going to be recovered by 2050. Okay, so that's a good example. And what does reduction in ozone layer cause? So it causes millions of additional cases of melanoma, that is skin cancer, other cancers, and eye cataracts. Okay, which is a big problem in countries like India. So melanoma, other cancers, and eye cataracts. Okay, so it is estimated that Montreal Protocol is saving about 2 million people each year by 2030 from skin cancer. Okay, so we are saying 2 million people every year by 2030 because of this protocol. So to date, the parties to the protocol have phased out 98% of ozone depleting substances globally compared to 1990 level. So in comparison to 1990 level, 98% of ODS use has gone down because of Montreal Protocol. Because most of these substances are potent greenhouse gases, the Montreal Protocol is also contributing significantly to the protection of the global climate system. So what is greenhouse? Greenhouse gases, they produce CO2, and the impact is that the temperature of the environment increases, climate increases, and there is a global warming, global climate change. And because of the reduction in ODS, because these reduce ozone layer as well as they produce greenhouse gases, they that has also resulted in reduction, slowing down of the rise in temperature of the climate, so slowing down of the global climate change. So you can see this is a ozone hole that is on the south pole in Antarctica. So what does the latest UN report say about the hole in the ozone layer? So the UN report that was produced in January 2023, okay, says the Earth's ozone layer is slowly recovering. So that is a positive report. Okay, so Earth's protective ozone layer is on track to recover within 4 decades in a gradual process that's expected to close a major ozone hole over Antarctica, a United Nations backed panel of experts announced on Monday. Okay, and this is as a result of landmark Montreal Protocol that was agreed in 1987. So that's about the activity that has been asked. They have asked whether the size of the hole in ozone layer has changed. So yes, it is on the way of recovery, and by 2050 it will be recovered completely. Okay, now this is the end of ozone session. Now this next topic is about managing the garbage that is produced in day-to-day life, in modern life. So they want us to visit a town or a city and see if you can find out what happens to the waste that is generated at the house, and how it is collected and disposed of, and whether the local bodies like panchayat, municipal corporation, or other local bodies, they deal with the waste properly or not. Are there any mechanisms in place to treat the biodegradable and non-biodegradable waste separately? So basically, what happens to the garbage, to the waste that is produced? So that's the thing they want you to know. So if you want to know about this, then you will have to go and visit your local place and find out. But in general, the garbage in the house, the waste material in the house is put in the dustbins, and then it is collected by either the vehicles, or the dustbins are taken to some collection bins, collection centers. These vehicles by municipality or corporation, they collect the waste and they dump it in sanitary landfills. So sanitary landfills are on the outskirts of the cities. Currently, as per the Government of India estimates, about 65 million tons of waste is generated every year in India. 65 million tons. And over 62 million tons of this waste, that is organic waste, recyclable, like paper, plastic, wood, glass, etc., is of this type. Okay, and out of 65 million ton waste, over 62 million ton is either organic waste or recyclable waste. Only 75 to 80% of this waste from the houses gets collected, and out of this only 22 to 28% is processed and treated in a proper way. So remember, 65 million tons collected, more than 62 million tons is either organic or recyclable, and third type of waste is non-recyclable, non-organic, organic, recyclable, non-recyclable. Okay, so the next activity, that's about the activity, and they want you to know whether it is biodegradable and non-biodegradable. So yes, it is biodegradable. Out of 65, 62 million ton is under the category of biodegradable, and sorry, it is not exactly biodegradable. It's the both the combination of biodegradable and non-biodegradable. Okay, and there are the uh, the waste materials that fall under non-recyclable categories. That's not mentioned here because the data is not available from the government on that. Now the next activity is find out what happens. So these activities are given in your CBSE book. So the next, this what we have seen now is about the solid waste. Okay, the next activity is about the liquid waste, that is sewage. So find out how the sewage in your local place is treated. Are there mechanisms in place to ensure that local water bodies are not polluted by untreated sewage? Find out how the local industries in your locality treat their wastage. Are there mechanisms in place to ensure that the soil and water are not polluted by this waste? So this is very, very actually important point, and unfortunately in our country, in India, we are doing very, very poor in the treatment of sewage management. Okay, so we'll go a little bit into detail. So this shows the picture. Ideally the sewage treatment plant should be available for every town and cities, but what happens in actual practice is sewage is just disposed of, dumped into the natural water resources, so they do get contaminated by untreated sewage. Okay, so remember, in ideally the treated sewage should be released into the water sources, but in practice untreated sewage is released into the water sources, water bodies. Okay, so in India, sewage treatment plants treat only third of the sewage that is generated every day. Only one third is treated in sewage treatment plants. Two-thirds of the liquid waste, that is sewage, is released directly into the environment. So that can contaminate your water bodies. Now, little bit more about the degradable and biodegradable. In fact, this is dry waste and wet waste. So wet waste is biodegradable, compostable. It is cooked food, vegetarian, non-vegetarian, eggs, shells, bones, uncooked food, veg, non-veg, fruits, vegetables, peels, fruit and flower waste, fallen leaves, and other compostable material, and kitchen waste. So that is a waste, wet waste. Okay. Now dry waste is paper, plastic, wood, fabric, cloth, metal, glass, rubber, leather, resin, and thermocol. This is a dry and this is a wet waste. I'll just take you through a little bit more details of this activity. Okay. So the next activity is calculate how much waste is generated at home in a day. How much of this waste is biodegradable? Calculate how much waste is generated in the classroom in a day. How much of this waste is biodegradable, and suggest the ways of dealing with this waste. So now every house will have different amount of waste generated. Okay. And part of it will be biodegradable, that will come from kitchen, as well as paper, cardboard. They will biodegrade to some extent, but there will be other material like polythene, packets, wrappers that will need to be recycled. Okay. That will not easily degrade. It will take probably for polythene bags 20 to 30 years, the bags that are used in modern day super shops, but the old bags used to last for about 450 years. So different material will take different times. I had given you a good list of the substances of the waste materials uh, that was asked in one of your activities earlier, and that list is quite good. So if you remember that list, I have made a list of biodegradable and non-degradable, and this is mainly the dry waste products, and it gives you uh, the duration in years of how much time it will take for their decomposition. So you can, and I had suggested you to take a screenshot of this so you can actually revise them and remember them. Okay. So that's about these dry waste products. Most of it is most of them are non-biodegradable. Okay. So every house will have different amounts, so it is difficult for calculation. You need to find out how much waste products your house has, and how much of it is biodegradable and how much is non-biodegradable. But in general, about half of the waste collection is biodegradable. What should we do to deal with the waste? So here is a simple suggestion. We should have three different types of dustbins. One for biodegradable waste, second for recyclable waste. So biodegradable will go to compost. Okay. The second, recyclable waste, will go for recycling, and non-biodegradable waste that will not be recyclable will be treated in specific way. So some of them are given in next few minutes, so we'll go through that. So there is again explanation of your sewage treatment activity, how sewage in your locality is treated. So sewage is collected by underground or over the ground gutters or pipelines. So underground will be pipeline and over the ground gutter. Yeah. These pipelines uh, make it carry the sewage to the treatment plants. In the sewage treatment plant, the sewage is treated by following three steps: physical treatment, biological treatment, and chemical treatment. So physical treatment is to remove the large and solid impurities, to separate them from the sewage. So a wire mat is used for sewage filtration to remove the large and solid impurities. The floating wastes are separated physically. So that's a physical treatment. By wire mats and floating waste is removed, separated physically. Now biological treatment has two parts: aerobic treatment, anaerobic treatment. Aerobic is with oxygen. The sewage is aerated in large open tanks where aerobic bacteria are used, okay, to remove the organic material to make it free from organic impurities. So aerobic bacteria are used by aeration in large open tanks to give aerobic treatment to remove the organic impurities. Then anaerobic treatment is now remaining organic matter is removed by the treatment with anaerobic bacteria. So whatever is organic matter is left is removed by anaerobic bacteria. Anaerobic digestion is done in large digester. Remember, aerobic treatment is done in large open tanks. Anaerobic digestion is done in large digester. The sludge, that is solid that is left after anaerobic degradation, can be used as manure for farming, and this treatment generates biogas, and that can be used for for cooking and for electricity generation. So it generates manure and it generates biogas, and the sewage is clean, so you can release that water into the nature. In practice, 75% of sewage is directly released in river water. That is very, very unfortunate in our country. Okay. Now, what does the chemical treatment do? It uses chemicals like chlorine to clean the sewage, and it's not always done. It's some plants, sewage treatment plants, this chemical treatment is used. Now the next point in your activity was about industrial waste. So again, unfortunately in India, we have a lot of issues with industrial waste management. Thousands of small scale and bigger industrial units, they simply dump their waste, more often toxic and hazardous waste, in open spaces and nearby water resources, and that's a big problem in India. Over last 3 decades, many cases of serious and permanent damage to environment by these industries have come to the fore. Rapid industrialization has resulted in the generation of huge quantity of wastes, both solid and liquid, in industrial sectors. Despite requirements for pollution control measures, these wastes are generally dumped on land or discarded into water bodies without adequate treatment, and thus become a large source of environmental pollution and health hazard. Now, management of industrial solid waste is not the responsibility of panchayat or municipality or corporation. It is the industries that generate solid waste. Those industries have to manage their waste by themselves, and there are strict laws and regulations, but they are not usually followed by these industries. Industrial waste could be classified into hazardous industrial waste and non-hazardous industrial waste. Okay, so that's about the activity that was about sewage treatment and industrial waste management. Now there is another important point, interesting point, your book has mentioned. It's about disposable cups in trains, and because you are quite young, you may not know about these disposable cups that were made up of clay. They were called as kullards. Okay, Kulhad, kullards. So these cups were used in the past to serve tea on the trains, but now they have gone out of fashion because they need a lot of soil. So it uses up top fertile soil, and then the problem is it's expensive to make these. That's why the plastic disposable cups came into fashion. and every year millions of plastic cups have been used, are being used. But now, because of the environmental concerns, there are regulations in place, and the disposable paper cups are being used uh, on the trains. So there's a question here: what do you think are the advantages of disposable paper cups over the disposable plastic cups? So it's pretty obvious what the advantages will be. The advantage of the paper cup is that it can be decomposed easily by microorganisms. Okay, hence they create less pollution than the plastic cups. So if these paper cups are buried in landfills or treated by burning, there will be less pollution. Either it will, if you bury it, it will make compost. By burying, it will create compost that can be used as a manure. And if you burn it in landfills, then it will create less air pollution, okay, in comparison to the plastic cups. So plastic cups are more hazardous. That's why the paper cups are useful, and these coolers are almost non-existent now because of the practical and technical difficulties, and the fact that making of coolers itself is not good for our soil. Okay, so the next topic in this chapter is about the electronic waste. Okay, and this is again an interesting topic for 21st century. They want you to search on internet or in library what hazardous materials have to be dealt with while disposing of electronic items. How would these materials affect the environment? Find out how plastics are recycled. Does the recycling process have any impact on environment? So there are two sub activities in your last activity here. So let's go through e-waste, that is electronic waste recycling. So electronics are actually complex mix of product types and materials, some of which are hazardous. They include arsenic, cadmium, lead, mercury, and certain flame retardants. They also include plastics and electronic chips made of silicon. So usually electronic items, e-waste, are dumped. They are disposed of by dumping into the landfills, or by melting, or by burning. Burning is called incinerated. Okay, or they are dumped or buried in the landfills. So metals that can be there in few electronic devices like copper, iron, silicon, gold, nickel, etc. These are recovered during recycling process, but they have to be recycled. If you dump them, you cannot recycle them. Burning, incineration, melting can recover some of these metals, but they need to be done in proper recycling centers. Cadmium, if spreads in the environment, in the soil, in the water, they are toxic to human kidneys and bones and can accumulate in the surrounding environment. Okay, PVC, usually treated by burning. So dioxins are released. Dioxins or dioxins, they are released. They are toxic to human immune system and reproductive systems. So PVC treated by burning, dioxins released, toxic to immune and reproductive system. Mercury, that is heavy metal that is harmful to the nervous system and to the kidneys. Okay, so these metals, hazardous materials that are there in electronic waste, if they go into the surrounding soil and water, and if we consume them, if we come in contact with them, they can be harmful for us. Now the last part is about plastic recycling. And your activity asks you to find out how plastics are recycled and does the recycling process have any impact on environment. So plastic recycling is usually a two-stage process. The first stage is sorting, and it is mainly done automatically with manual sort to ensure all contaminants have been removed. So first stage is sorting. Okay, and usually it's mainly automatic, plus there is a manual sorting to remove all the contaminants from the plastic. Okay, so whatever is left is only plastic, pure plastic. Remove all the contaminants. Once the sorting is done and plastic is cleaned, it can either be shredded into flakes or melt processed to form pellets before finally being molded into new products. So it will be either shredded, okay, or formed, converted into pellets. So shreds or pellets. So shredded into flakes or melt process to form pellets, and then that either shredded flakes or pellets, they will be used to make new product. So this is the recycling, using plastic, processing it, and then produce new products, that is recycling the plastic. Wide range of products can be made from recycled plastic. Recycle processes also have a bad impact on environment because this process causes air and water pollution. So recycling is not the safe process, it itself causes air and water pollution. So this has to be done in specialized centers in a careful manner. So this is how we have completed this uh, chapter on environment. I hope this is useful for you. I will see you in next video with the new chapter. So whoever is watching this video, if you are a student, please share these video links to your fellow students, and if you are a teacher, please share these links to your students so they get to watch this free resource, and there will be more videos, such videos posted on this channel. So stay connected. See you later. Take care. Bye bye.